The rain hammered against the windows of our little cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, that cottage had been our sanctuary, a testament to the love I shared with Giselle. 20 years, a lifetime or so I thought. I'm Quentin, a 46-year-old potter, and until a few weeks ago my life was a quiet symphony of clay, kilns, and Giselle's laughter. Now it's a discordant mess of suspicion, betrayal, and a gut-wrenching pain I never knew existed. Started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Giselle, a vibrant and outgoing librarian, had always been the more social one, but lately her evenings were filled with book club meetings that stretched later and later. Her phone, once an open book, was now guarded like a state secret, always face down, always within reach. I'd ask her about her day, and her responses were vague, almost rehearsed. "Oh, you know, the usual library stuff," she'd say, her eyes darting away from mine. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe work was stressful. Maybe we were just drifting apart after 2 decades together, a natural ebb and flow of marriage. But the feeling persisted, a nagging unease that wouldn't let me sleep. Then came the lipstick stain on her collar, a shade she never wore, the unfamiliar perfume clinging to her clothes, the whispered phone calls taken in the garden at midnight. The night I found the text messages, my world shattered. I'd come downstairs for a glass of water, unable to sleep. Giselle had left her phone on the kitchen counter. I told myself not to look. I told myself to trust her. But the temptation was too strong, the suspicion too overwhelming. The screen lit up with a notification. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love." The message was from a number I didn't recognize, a number saved as Martin. My hands trembled as I unlocked her phone shed, never changed the password from our anniversary date. The messages were a torrent of filth, a graphic, sickening chronicle of their affair. "I crave you. I can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive again." Each word was a knife twisting in my gut. Martin, it turned out, was a local architect, a man we'd met at a village fete last summer. He was charming, handsome, and apparently completely irresistible to my wife. I stood there, numb, the phone slipping from my grasp. The messages blurred through my tears. How could she? How could she do this to me, to us? 20 years. 20 years of love, loyalty, and commitment, all reduced to a series of sordid text messages. The next few days were a blur of anger, disbelief, and crushing sadness. I confronted Giselle. She denied it at first, of course. "It's just a friend," she said, her voice shaking. "You're imagining things." But I showed her the messages. I read them aloud, my voice cracking with each word. Her face crumpled. The lies vanished, replaced by a mask of shame and regret. "I'm so sorry, Quentin," she sobbed. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "How far is too far, Giselle?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "When you're naked in another man's bed, when you're whispering sweet nothings into his ear, when you're destroying everything we've built together." She had no answer. She just cried, a torrent of tears that did nothing to wash away the stain of her betrayal. She tried to explain. She said she felt neglected, that I was too focused on my pottery, that she needed excitement. Excuses. Empty, hollow excuses that did nothing to ease the pain. I moved into the spare room. The cottage felt cold, empty, a shell of its former self. We existed in a state of strained silence, broken only by her tearful apologies and my bitter accusations. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't function. The image of Giselle with Martin haunted me, replaying in my mind like a twisted movie. I lost weight. My hands shook so badly I could barely work with the clay. My art, once my solace, now mocked me with its beauty, a stark contrast to the ugliness of my life. I confided in my friend Barnaby, a gruff but loyal carpenter who lived down the lane. He listened patiently, his weathered face etched with concern. "You can't let her do this to you, Quentin," he said, his voice firm. "You're a good man. You deserve better." He suggested I see a solicitor, start thinking about my options. But I was too numb, too lost in my grief to take action. Then came the second blow, the one that finally shattered what little remained of my heart. I received an anonymous letter in the post, a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph. A photograph of Giselle and Martin holding hands, their faces radiant with happiness. They were standing in front of a jeweler's shop, and on Giselle's finger was a diamond ring. They were planning a future together. While I was agonizing over her betrayal, while I was tearing myself apart with grief, she was building a new life with another man. The rage that surged through me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was a primal, animalistic fury, a desire to lash out, to destroy, to make them feel the pain they had inflicted on me. I drove to Martin's office, a sleek, modern building in the center of town. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I had to confront him, to look him in the eye and demand an explanation. I stormed into the reception area, my face contorted with rage. "I want to see Martin," I roared, ignoring the receptionist's startled expression. "Tell him Quentin is here." Martin appeared a few minutes later, his face pale. He led me into his office, a sterile, impersonal space that reeked of arrogance and ambition. "What do you want, Quentin?" he asked, his voice cold. "You know damn well what I want," I spat. "You're sleeping with my wife. You're planning a future with her. How could you do this to me?" He shrugged, a gesture that only fueled my anger. "Giselle and I have a connection," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "She's not happy with you. She deserves to be with someone who appreciates her." "Appreciates her," I repeated, incredulous. "I've spent 20 years of my life loving her, cherishing her, building a life with her." "And you think you appreciate her more than I do? Love isn't enough, Quentin," he said, his eyes glinting with a smug satisfaction. "Sometimes people just grow apart. Giselle needs someone who can give her what she wants, someone who can offer her excitement and adventure." I lunged at him, grabbing him by the throat. I wanted to strangle him, to silence his smug pronouncements, to erase the image of him with Giselle from my mind. But I stopped myself. I couldn't do it. I wasn't a violent man. I wouldn't stoop to their level. I released him, my hands shaking. "You're a pathetic excuse for a man," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "You're a home wrecker, a parasite. You'll never know what it means to truly love someone." I turned and walked out, leaving him standing there, his face flushed with anger and surprise. I went home and packed my bags. I couldn't stay in that cottage any longer, surrounded by the ghosts of our shattered dreams. I left a note for Giselle, a short, simple message. "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." I didn't say where I was going. I didn't say when I would be back. I just walked out the door and never looked back. I drove to London, a city I had always loved but never had the courage to live in. I rented a small studio apartment in Notting Hill, a world away from the quiet countryside of the Cotswolds. I needed a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life, to heal my broken heart. I threw myself into my pottery. I rented a small workshop in a nearby industrial estate and spent hours working with the clay, shaping it, molding it, pouring my emotions into each piece. I created strange, beautiful, tormented sculptures, expressions of my pain and my anger. People were drawn to them. They saw the emotion in them, the raw, unfiltered honesty. My work began to sell. I started to gain recognition. For the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Months passed. I heard nothing from Giselle. I didn't want to hear from her. I was determined to move on, to forget her, to erase her from my memory. But then one day I received a phone call. It was Barnaby. "Quentin," he said, his voice grave. "You need to come home. It's Giselle." I drove back to the Cotswolds, my heart pounding with dread. Barnaby met me at the cottage. "She's gone, Quentin," he said, his eyes filled with pity. "She's dead." I stared at him, numb. "What happened?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "She killed herself," he said. "She took an overdose of sleeping pills. They found her this morning." The police investigation revealed a series of letters Giselle had written in the days leading up to her death. Letters to me, to her family, to Martin. In her letter to me, she confessed everything. She admitted that she had been unhappy for a long time, that she felt trapped in our marriage, that she had sought excitement and validation in Martin's arms. She said she was sorry for the pain she had caused me, that she never meant for things to go so far. She begged for my forgiveness. In her letter to Martin, she accused him of using her, of manipulating her, of promising her a future that he never intended to deliver. She said he had grown cold and distant after she left me, that he had made it clear he was never going to leave his wife for her. She accused him of breaking her heart, of driving her to despair. I don't know what to believe. I don't know if Giselle was a victim or a villain. I don't know if Martin was a callous manipulator or just a weak man caught in a web of his own making. All I know is that Giselle is gone, and I am left with the wreckage of our lives. I returned to London. my grief compounded by guilt and confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow responsible for Giselle's death. Maybe if I had been more attentive, more understanding, more loving, she wouldn't have sought solace in another man's arms. Maybe if I had forgiven her, she wouldn't have felt so desperate, so alone. But then I remember the photograph, the diamond ring, the cold, calculated betrayal. And I know that I am not to blame. Giselle made her choices. She betrayed me. She destroyed our marriage. And ultimately, she took her own life. I am a victim in all of this, a man who loved and lost, a man who was betrayed and abandoned. And now, I must find a way to move on, to heal, to rebuild my life from the ashes of her destruction. Years later, I'm still in London. My pottery is thriving. I've even found love again, with a kind and compassionate woman named Bront who understands my pain and accepts my past. But the scars of Giselle's betrayal will always be with me, a constant reminder of the fragility of love and the devastating consequences of infidelity. I learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who are capable of inflicting the greatest pain. I never spoke to Martin again, but I heard through the grapevine that his life had fallen apart. His wife left him, his business suffered, he became a pariah in the community. Karma, some might say, but I take no pleasure in his misfortune. His suffering doesn't bring Giselle back. It doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't undo the damage. It just serves as a grim reminder of the destructive power of betrayal. My life is good now, peaceful even. But there's always a shadow, a lingering sadness that I can't quite shake. Giselle's betrayal changed me, hardened me, made me more cautious, more guarded. I will never fully trust anyone again. And that, I think, is the greatest tragedy of all.